And then Mrs. Tyson, who is one of my greatest fans. I'm sorry she couldn't be on this morning. She's on a plane at the moment. Mm-hmm. And she really would like teachers to use it more. But as I said, it just hasn't. I just thought it's so simple, so easily put out, that teachers would run to it. But I'll tell you what, I gave a workshop in Dominica one time, and I was talking about the language. I mean, they have Creole languages of all sorts, at least 3 more than we have. And I was, just showing them how simple it is to teach certain English, aspects of English, to people who speak a Creole. And I think their disbelief was the following. If this is true, how come nobody told us all these years? They're still using like Nestfield grammar. And I had to say to them, if you go to a doctor and he takes out a reference book that was written in 1914, wouldn't you get up and leave? Well, but people are unwilling to accept that it is so simple, what I have put out, when they have learned all these years, all these complicated ways of doing things. So that's one of its problems.
Can you tell us about the singular subject?
Yes. She knows that is my pet peeve. It has always bothered me. A singular verb takes a singular subject. And then a singular subject takes a singular verb, and a plural subject takes a plural verb. And then you go forth to give the following example. I drink. They drink. No. I and they are not the same. One is singular and one is plural. So didn't it stare anybody in the face that I and they both take the same verb? Mm-hmm. If you know how teachers go ahead to try and show children that drink is a plural verb when you see it with they, and a singular verb when you see it with I. And my argument is that if you walk like a duck, you must be a duck. So if the 2 words are the same, how are you going to convince people that isn't? So when I show them why it happened, because English did not, when they decided to describe English, the only example of description they had was Latin. And so they went to Latin. They had things like vocative, oh thief. Who you ever heard say that? They just took the whole thing. Now, people are unwilling to believe that is how it happened. But that is how it happened. So we just borrowed something that the fit was bad. As usual, we're always borrowing ill-fitting fits and wearing them as if we know what we're doing. So it is that. That is such a bad mistake. And then they go ahead to teach the children that the noun, the plural of the noun, has on an S, books. So you get things like the S becomes a pluralizer. So when you have a plural subject, you get I lives, they lives here.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing is that the only English part of the English verb that changes is the third person. He, she, or it lives. Yes. And because that changes, people who speak patois, certainly in Jamaica, think that the other parts are wrong. So people will tell you, it doesn't lives here. Because once you use lives, it must be English. Yes. And that is because that's the only one that changes. Yes. So we're not examining the thing and getting it right. We're examining it and getting it wrong.
And I think when I've heard you talking to teachers, and when I've talked to teachers and shown them your book about, starting with the third person, it becomes much simpler. And I think that's the great thing about that book, that it is very clear that the examples.
And I've used it in one of the courses that I teach, and I found when I've explained it to them your way, on page 22, they get it.
Yes.
But so and the other useful thing is that you outline strategies.
Yes.
And you also provide resource materials.
Yes.
It's really a very friendly teacher's guide, and I wish more teachers would take the time to go through it and use it in their classroom.
And I must tell you that I thought they would. In fact, when I showed it to my linguistics colleagues, they said, does it have to be so simple? And I said, yes, it has to be so simple. But I went to did a workshop with some teachers once, and I had this book, and the lady said, You know, somebody gave me that book one time, but I never opened it. So
if you want to hide some information,
put it in a book.
But I think we, as Yolanda, we have to talk about ways of ensuring that we do expose our students
to it,
in one particular course. And what tends to happen, you know, that our students tend to photocopy a lot of material. But I think they do appreciate the value. You use it for language study when you want to talk about, you know, how Jamaica developed its relationship to English. When you want to separate it,
yes,
that's where we start.
Idiomatic expressions,
very
key.
If people know that Creole, that Jamaican patois is different from Jamaican English, and we have these two languages going along, every Jamaican you stop, what language do you speak? I English, me I talk. That's Marvin Morris's sentence, but it's true. I hope that the university bookshop is listening, because I phoned there this morning to get a copy of the book, and not only did they not have any, but they didn't see anywhere that they would be ordering it in the near future. Although I know that Yolanda ordered it.
Yes.
But they told me they didn't see anywhere that it would be ordered in the near future. And I said to them, you know, the press is on this campus. You should just call them, find out where to get. I mean, I can't believe that it's not to come from England, and you don't have one copy, and you don't know when you will have. So I'm going to ask that people put it on nearly all the language teaching courses so that everyone feels that they should buy it. I mean, that will help me, but also it will help my frustration that it didn't do what I thought it would do. You know?
It will eventually. It will. Cassidy, how long is Cassidy?
Yeah, well.
It will, and it has a meaning, and I intend to use it to integrate it even more into the course.
Well, that's good. And because I find that some teachers just use it for themselves.
Yes.
Like a teacher from Campion said she used it. And I didn't even ask her any further because I figured she used it, but she didn't allow the children, the students, to get involved with it.
Yeah.
You know.
I think at Cape, for some reason, it's used in the Cape communication skill.
It is?
Yes.
I hope.
Yes.
Well, the press tells me they didn't sell any this year, so. What does that say? You know, we try.
That copying is
but copying is they're not supposed to copy more than 6 pages, is that it?
More than a chapter.
Yes.
And these chapters are very small.
Yes. But I would definitely suggest any teacher to buy a copy and have it as a reference guide. I mean, there's certain things that certain books that teachers should have, a dictionary.
Yes.
And this book from Jamaican Creole to Standard English.
If only to admit that we have these two languages that are related in specific ways. Yep. You see, there's a lot of talk now about teaching English as a second language. But I just want to say that what we have here is not just English as a second language, is English as a language that is being taught in an environment where the Creole is related to English. And that is a massive difference because people really think it's the same thing, especially since some people whose first language is English understand what we say. They don't get the whole meaning, but because the words are the same, they land in the same ballpark. But the words really don't mean the same thing. I mean, my favorite advertisement is about Jamaica, Afiwidis. I can't find any English in that. Afiwidis. And the English translation is this island is ours.
Yes. And
it's really quite different.
Yes, and sometimes you have students who would do that. Who would just take the Jamaican and translate it.
I have a nice example from they were learning Animal Farm, and they were talking about I can't remember the whole thing, but they were transliterating straight from patois. Like instead of saying I can't. It's how we talk about ownership. I'm sorry.
Femi?
Huh?
Femi?
No, not
What
Femi.
about the one another?
Them one another, yes.
Yes.
The animals were fighting against them one another. No. No, they were writing that in an English response,
Yes.
The animals were fighting against their one another. And they spelled it Their, another.
Yes.
So if they had got the idea that we're dealing with two different languages, they wouldn't do that. They would look for the meaning. They would find each other.
Yes.
And that's exactly why we're saying that is not just a TESOL book. It's about how you move from Jamaican to English in our particular environment. You have to keep the two languages separate and know that it's not just a translation from one to the other.
If I may quote Edible, English is a language that is at risk.
Right.
Yes.
Because everybody, and I'm glad to see everybody so badly wants to identify that they are vexed with themselves on the radio. If they speak 2 sentences of English, they have to hurry up and hug up some patois quickly, when nothing is wrong with having 2 languages.
Absolutely.
You don't have to show how much more you have one. Everybody wants to be so folksy. Do you hear them?
Yes.
When they catch themselves using English, they hurry up and grab on some patois.
Yes.
So what would you say to the persons who, the naysayers,
About
from Jamaican Creole to Standard English, about even acknowledging Creole, and who think that the university...
One of the things that we don't realize is how many people are not even aware of us and this problem. I went to talk to a book club recently and I was in shock. There were a whole set of Jamaican, upper class, I suppose, people there who had no idea about patois. They just heard it, or so they not only can they not use it, but they just had no idea that it had any structure or anything. Mm-hmm. And to think that people are understanding each other in a medium, and you say you don't recognize it as a language, but it's not just us. A friend of mine, a medic of blessed memory now, went to Sri Lanka or one of those places and came back and said that it's Malaysia, that the people didn't even have a language. So I said, so what do they communicate in? So he gave me 2 different set of words, and out of it I made a rule to show him that even with that little amount of data, I could see the rule. But he's highly educated, but he could listen to those people and really tell me it's not a language. And I said, as long as you can get it wrong by saying a this way instead of a way this, it means that it must be rule governed, Anyway.
I suppose it's because people would really be people's definition of what constitutes a language. And if it's that thing about a language being a dialect with an army and a navy,
right?
It's not powerful. They don't recognize.
Yeah, languages take on the personality of the people who speak them, and Jamaican Creole came from the slaves getting accustomed to their situation, and this is how it evolved, and so it became a low-grade language. I just want to put in something here about papiamento, which within the Caribbean is one of the Creoles that has the highest status, and I was always wondering, how did this happen? And they tell me the workers fought for it, so they have different newspapers in papiamento, and then I found out the secret. It is that the Jewish people who made up the ruling class in the ABCs, sort of chiefly Curacao, they did not accept Dutch, which is the real language.
Yes.
Papiamento is made up of the Portuguese and Spanish, Portuguese mostly, coming from that side of Europe. And the moneyed people kept that language. So again, it is about money and power. Language is about power. Yeah. I think that's a good note to stop on. Language is about power.
Yes.
Thank you. So I just want to thank Dr. Shees Broadway, who is not hearing, Dr. Yewand Lewis Folcom, and Dr. Beverly Bryan for being kind enough to come over here and give us their time this morning, supporting me. Thank you very much. And thanks to the press for this big upping. Right.